Now
on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
It's 6:07 here on this Monday morning in your nation's capital. It's the first day of July. How about that? We are plowing ahead toward Election Day, and we appreciate you joining us as we continue to discuss the fallout of Joe Biden's horrible performance Thursday night. Again, not just about the debate. What it really was the revelation of everything that we've seen and known. But finally, everybody else got to see it, too, without the filter of the mainstream media. We're talking about that and the fallout and what seems to be a big decision-making process happening in the Biden family right now. At least that's what they want you to believe. Coming up at 6:35, Laura Hanford out of Fairfax County talk about how the school board there wants to teach gender identification to 7-year-olds. 7:05, Joe DeGeneva. 7:35, Hung Cao. 8:05, Jerry Lehman, the man who was at the center of that Supreme Court case that took down Chevron. 8:15, Melissa Roby, We Back Blue. And then at 8:35, Julie Kelly with great news from a decision Friday that is music to anyone's ears about those obstruction of a congressional hearing or whatever.
What a great lineup, Larry.
Yeah, and a great news cycle that we get to, we embrace the days when things are going our way. And that is exactly what's happening. That's why, expect the Supreme Court decision today to not grant any immunity to Donald Trump. And, I just feel like the pendulum has to come back. But we are awaiting that decision with regard to presidential immunity that will impact the investigations into Donald Trump. And we're going to continue taking your calls here at 888-630-9625. As we are told, the Biden family met at Camp David over the weekend for some serious soul searching. The pictures that are emerging, by the way, as Biden gets off the plane and walks toward the next vehicle to take it, and everyone in the family is acting like they're dealing with a death in the family.
Yeah.
You look at their faces and the body language.
It's a little reminiscent of Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton going out to the helicopter after the Monica Lewinsky story broke.
Yeah, it does have that vibe.
It has that very serious.
And the leaks out of this meeting that tell you that, Jill Biden is all in. She can't wait. She's ready to take it to them. And you seem to believe that because she's, what did you say, Nurse Ratched and Madame Mao?
Yes, she's a combination. And, there's others that fit that description, but Carmela Soprano is another one.
Yes. And Mediaite is reporting that one of the strongest voices imploring Mr. Biden to resist pressure to drop out was his son, Hunter Biden, whom the president has long leaned on for advice. Because he's a convicted felon, crack addict, whoremonger.
Yeah, trafficker of women.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd like this headline, too, from Axios. Behind the curtain, Biden oligarchy will decide fate. Maybe you shouldn't use the word oligarchy. Could you come up with some other synonym? Brain trust, perhaps? I know. How about Star Chamber?
Yeah.
What the heck? 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. I think that all of these leaks that suggest that everyone wants him to stay, including Hillary and Bill and Barack and Michelle and Nancy. Listen to Nancy. I think it's all a show. I think that everyone is telling him, you're done, Joe. But the message needs to be that despite everyone encouraging him to stay, Joe Biden, the magnificent martyr for the cause, is setting aside his own ambition and ego and deciding what's best for the nation, and he's going to step aside.
It's stalling, Larry. They're all stalling. They're trying to gain time so they can get a handle on this thing, and they can convince Jill that it's better for her legacy if he drops out. And this is all Jill. At this point, this is all Jill's 100%.
So they trotted out Nancy Pelosi over the weekend to speak of how great Joe Biden is. And I don't know, maybe...
What time does she start drinking? On that Pacific time, that was 6:35 a.m. when she did this interview. And
maybe to speak on maybe the idea is it's like, okay, Joe was bad, but it could be worse. Look at Nancy. Maybe that's...
My people are very much Biden come together. My people are very much Biden, Kamala Harris, and this is an opportunity for Joe Biden to go out there and show he has the stamina and the... And by the way, while the press, and for some reason they don't, there are healthcare professionals who think that Trump has dementia. that his connection, his thoughts do not go together.
There you go. Well, I mean, I'm convinced.
Maybe it's not a great idea to send a fellow octogenarian out to defend the octogenarian
who's had
has mashed potatoes for brain.
And she's had a Bloody Mary or two injected into her vein before
smell the gin. Here.
According to reporting at Politico, Biden's family is very angry at Joe Biden's top advisors.
Yes. Let's blame the staff. Here we go.
They have privately lambasted the president's top advisors while at Camp David, putting the blame on them for Biden's poor performance at the debate.
Yeah, it's their fault.
Biden's family is now demanding Joe fire or demote his top campaign staffers. In fact, to be specific, we're talking about Anita Dunn, Bob Bauer, Ron Klain, and Jake Tapper, Dana Bash, and the entire staff at CNN, whoever was working the microphone, the makeup people.
Yeah.
Ben Shapiro pointed out when he saw this story that, now they've had enough. They're drawing the line. Joe Biden's going to fire his campaign advisors. He didn't fire anybody after Afghanistan.
That's right.
He fired nobody at the Pentagon.
Yep.
No one got fired there. No one got fired with the border.
No one got fired for COVID.
No one got fired for the vaccine.
Yeah.
No one got fired for, but we're going to fire these people because of the debate. Now you've crossed the line. Now you've actually, I think that was one of Trump's best moments was when he said he wouldn't fire anybody, this guy. Yeah. Look at how bad everything is. And
another one of his great moments was when he came back at Biden for saying the lie about suckers and losers. And he said, it's been confirmed by a general. And he said, and I fired that general. You didn't fire anybody.
Right. Tony in Silver Spring, what do you think the Democrats are going to do here, Tony? It's interesting as they scramble with the message. And again, I want to reiterate, the polls are devastating so far. One poll shows Biden losing by 6 points since the debate. The other shows him down 8 points since the debate. Go ahead, Tony.
Well, my thing is I'm not sure what the Democratic Party is going to do at this point. It's still up in the air, but I do know what the mainstream media is already doing. They're calling Trump a liar. They'll say Biden performed so poorly and Trump was lying the whole time, and they try to say those things as equally prominent.
Yeah.
In other words, their theme moving forward, whoever the nominee ends up being, is going to be, but Trump lies about everything, despite, as you mentioned, Joe Biden lied about the suckers and losers the very next day at his rally in North Carolina. I mean, what's your take on that?
Well, listen, I know that that's the narrative, and I think that they picked it up. I mean, it's hard to know whether the Biden people picked it up from the media or the media picked it up from the Biden people, Tony, but that's definitely one of the narratives they've put out there. It's like, oh, sure, Joe Biden has mashed potatoes for brains, and he doesn't know what state he's in at any given time, but Trump's a liar. But the biggest lies actually came out of Biden during this debate. That's honestly, and I haven't actually seen any sort of listen. Trump exaggerates. Every politician exaggerates, and he did exaggerate some things during the debate. But I didn't see any lies.
No, exactly.
I didn't lose one person in the military on my watch.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the most despicable lie you could tell.
Yeah.
But I noticed on the Sunday shows, not one of them interviewed a Gold Star family to get their reaction to the president lying about that, and the suckers and losers lie, of course. The lie about inflation.
Well, the lie also about very good people, which was just debunked by
very fine people on both sides. That lie, but also his numbers were all over the place about what to suggest that Donald Trump, they had to come up with something.
Yeah,
and so all they said was Donald Trump lies. The fact is, if what you call what Donald Trump said on the debate stage is a lie, then Joe Biden lied 10 times more.
That's right.
Because what I saw from Donald Trump were exaggerations, right? Versus what I saw from Joe Biden. In fact, listen, even CNN had to admit that there were major lies from Joe Biden. I'll give those to you in just a second so you can see the litany of them. And more of your calls at 888-630 WMAL. Right now, though, it's 6:15.
WMAL, making sense of education, because what's happening in your kid's school matters. Download the WMAL app to stream us for free.
I guess the Democrats and the media, their big message here is, okay, sure, Biden has brain damage, but what would you rather have? a president with brain damage who is completely incapacitated and can't even put a sentence together, or someone who's completely cognizant of where he is and what he's doing, but tells lies. And that's the best they've got.
They won't say it. They will never say it. But I do think that the media knows that this is Obama's third term, that he runs the White House from his Colorama house. That's why he spends so much time in Washington.
It's his people, it's his policies.
They're in and out of that house.
Yeah.
And I think that's why the media is so hush-hush about this, because ultimately, he's brain damaged, but, Obama's really in charge.
Yeah, it doesn't
Susan
matter
Rice
who's
is really
the
in
president.
charge. Jill's helping out. Like, it's fine.
It doesn't matter who's the
That's
president as long as we get what we want.
Right.
That's why everybody's like, I thought Biden was a moderate. I thought Biden was this and Biden was that.
No.
Well, maybe he was 30 years ago, but right now he's not the president.
Right.
These aren't his policies.
Right.
Meanwhile, here's Daniel Dale. He's the fact checker for CNN. And even he had to admit this about Biden's debate.
Some of them. He said he's the only president in a while who didn't have any troops dying anywhere in the world. Troops have, of course, died on his watch. He said he's put in a $15 per shot cap on insulin and Medicare. It's a $35 a month cap. He said it's a $200 cap on overall drug spending in Medicare. It's $2,000 a year. He said the border now has fewer crossings than when Trump was in office. That's generally not true. He said, or at least strongly suggested, unemployment was at 15% when he took office. It was actually 6.4. He said Trump wants to get rid of Social Security. Trump doesn't. He said billionaires pay 8.2% in taxes. It's much higher. He said Trump told Americans to inject bleach amid COVID. We know Trump made foolish comments about scientists studying disinfectant injection, but didn't frame it as advice to people. And Biden said the Border Patrol endorsed him. No, its union supported the border bill he'd supported, never endorsed him himself.
Now, that was 45 seconds where they plowed through it as fast. Did you hear him talking? He sounded like Ben Shapiro on amphetamines. I mean, honestly, it was the... But if it were Trump, they would have spent 10 minutes on each one of those lies.
They would have spent
played
days,
the audio over again,
weeks
and then,
weeks and weeks
exactly.
on this. Yes.
Here, those were just the CNN discovered list of lies.
Yeah,
and they didn't even get to the find people on both sides hoax as well. So if you need to push back on the but Trump lies BS, you've got that you can use. All right. How about Marco in Springfield? Little Marco, you're on O'Connor and Company.
Hey, good morning, Larry.
Hey.
Julie, great show.
Thanks.
Hey, I want Joe Biden to stay in the race. I want to see him lose by just catastrophic proportions. But not only does Joe have to go, I mean, I was watching that fake debate, a cheap fake debate, and I couldn't believe, anybody who watched that didn't think it was. But secondly, Jill Biden's got to go too, because right after that, she just got up there acting even dumber than her husband.
Oh, Joe, you did such a great job. You answered every question.
Yeah.
Here's your
She
gold
asked
star.
the audience,
Yeah, thanks, Marco. Yeah, that was kind of embarrassing. I know how much you love the First Lady, so I thought of you when I saw that
Her
clip.
emergence, though, I mean, the talking to him, getting the crowd riled up at recent events, it's chilling.
Oh, there was the picture of them heading to the G7, and she's was sitting at the desk on Air Force One going over all the paperwork.
For the G7,
Right.
Makes a lot more sense now.
By the way, speaking of the G7, now you're seeing all these articles. Oh, and this is what's happened behind closed doors. Remember when 2 weeks ago we were told
all cheap fakes.
That it was all cheap fakes, and he's like, freaking Albert Einstein behind closed doors,
Yeah. He outruns Karine Jean-Pierre, remember?
Here's, I believe this is New York Times. The world saw Biden deteriorating. Democrats ignored the warnings. Biden missed the summit's dinner party in a medieval castle, an off-camera and less scripted part of the summit when leaders often exchange views most candidly. He was the only G7 leader to not attend the meal. The White House told reporters in advance he wouldn't be there because it would be a jam-packed 2 days of meetings.
Unbelievable.
And
that's your job.
And that's why during the cheap fake, when he wandered off aimlessly to go talk to a guy who had jumped out of an airplane who wasn't in the mood for talking to him, they all sort of surrounded him and brought him back to the crowd and reacted in such an alarming way. Scott Jennings this weekend, who's been doing great work on CNN, here's his take.
All of this.
First of all, everybody needs to be thanking Alex Thompson for what he's doing. I think he is covering and uncovering one of the biggest scandals in modern presidential history. The President of the United States for the last 3.5 years apparently cannot be seen by more than 12 people. However, we have seen a number of White House staffers and other Democrats, members of Congress, people in the party or whatever, claim repeatedly on our air and everywhere else that they are routinely behind closed doors with him and that he is so lucid and then he's doing handstands and he's running around the room and riding unicycles and juggling knives. It's obviously a complete and total fabrication. It's a farce. It's a lie. The president is compromised. Alex is, if this were any other president and if it were Trump or any other Republican, we would be on the air right now talking about the 25th Amendment. It is a scandal what we've been told and what we're now hearing and what we all saw with our own eyes on Thursday night.
And real fast, for everybody who says, where's Mike Johnson? Where's the leadership in the House? Where's leadership in the Senate demanding the 25th Amendment? I hear you, but let me just say something. Right now, the message from the campaign, from the Trump campaign, is everybody chill. We're happy with Biden right where he is. This is a good thing for us. That, you're hearing us talk about it because we don't work for the campaign. We're giving you our political analysis and observation of what we think is going on and giving you our opinions on it. Our job is not to try to win an election. The people who are actually trying to win the election right now, they want Biden to stay right where he is.
Yeah, I just want to also remind people, because I do have a certain amount of sympathy for people who are like, this seems dangerous. Right?
Yeah.
World leaders see this.
That's the other reason why.
World leaders see that these are not cheap fakes.
Yeah.
It puts America in a very vulnerable position. So I have sympathy for this, but I think you're right. There are an awful lot of people that say he's our best chance of getting Trump back in.
Right. Meanwhile, our sons and daughters who wear the uniform right now can be sent to their death with this guy's command.
That's right.
It's 6:25, Julie. It's 6:37 on O'Connor and Company on a busy Monday morning, first day of July, as all eyes are on Camp David and see what happens when the Biden family emerges. This whole conversation, Julie Gunlock, about whether Joe Biden stays or goes and everyone in the family is contributing. Do you think during this whole big Biden family session about the future of Joe Biden on the ticket, at any given time, do you think any person stepped up and said, hey, guys, what would be best for the country?
Yeah. No, I don't.
Do you think that ever even comes up?
No, I don't. I don't. I think these people are pathological narcissists. As
Jarek Hunter said, if he's not president, the Biden family has nothing to sell. So maybe he'll stay. Coming up at 7:05, Joe DeGenova, 7:35, Hung Cao, 8:05, the man in the center of that case that took down Chevron from Supreme Court. And then at 8:35, Julie Kelly on Great News for J6ers. That's all coming up. Larry O'Connor, Julie Gunlock, and now we turn to Laura Hanford, a mother in Fairfax County who spends a lot of time doing what every mother should be doing, which is watching the Loudoun County School Board and Fairfax County School Board and Fairfax County Public Schools. Laura, what are they up to now?
Hi, Larry. Hi, Julie.
Hey.
I wish I could talk to you sometime about something other than all the bad stuff that's happening.
All right.
But so the Family Life Education Committee or Curriculum Advisory Committee presented its recommendations in May, and there was a month of community comment as per usual, where it's in the most busy time of the year. Everybody's doing everything else. And of course, when did they have the vote on their recommendations? On the same night as debate night, which is also kind of their tradition to put things that are controversial in the summer. But they passed a couple things that were really, as usual, problematic, having to do with gender ideology. They are now adding a 7th grade PBS video that talks about girl parts, boy parts, and in-between parts for the non-binary. So that right there gives you a flavor of the sort of science that they're not including. And they're putting, ideology right there in the middle. They also voted on one of their most controversial recommendations, because these recommendations were held over. Some of them were held over from last year to be continued and voted on this year. And then they had a series of new ones as well. But in addition to the video, they voted to explore and look at I say the word lightly, research for elementary schoolers on gender ideology. So including whether, they're going to look at the so-called research to see whether they should teach elementary school kids gender ideology, which, believe it or not, the entire community, practically the entire community, like 84% or something, said no, twice no. Yeah. So they listened to parents when they want to.
Right.
I'll give you an example. One parent complained last year that grade 4 did not have explicit drawings of female external genitalia, but boys did.
Oh, dear.
In the video that they were showing boys for puberty development in grade 4. And so one parent complained, and now they're voting to add these drawings, which are quite explicit.
Oh, I love it. So, the
yeah.
response is, instead of getting rid of the explicit drawings of the boys, they're adding explicit drawings of the girls. That's terrific. In fourth grade.
Laura,
go ahead, Julie.
Laura, I have a question really quickly. What is the status of opting out? In Montgomery County, they have taken that away from parents. You literally are going to have to you're going to have to remove your child from that school if you don't want them to see this stuff. That's in Montgomery County. What's the status in Fairfax County of opting out?
So Fairfax County does have opt-out, and they've gotten better than they used to. It's not as buried as it used to be. And they made a point of talking about their robust opt-out. The problem with that is it's really kind of a cop-out, because they teach from kindergarten on now. They teach that silence is not consent. And yet, for parents, they do 80 hours of this explicit and ideological material without parental consent. And a lot of parents have no clue what's in there, because it's the beginning of the year, you don't necessarily see it. And the default is you get it. So unless you know to opt out, unless you speak the language, unless you know what all of it means, you're not going to take the time to opt out. You're not going to take the time to look through the whole material. So you can. And for parents who are well-informed, that's great. They can make that choice. But it's just one of those things where, why should the default be getting all of this? It should be that the default would be getting permission from parents.
Yeah.
To put the kids in these classes.
Yeah. One other question, because you keep referring to, like, they're looking at the research. They're looking at the research. They're going to tell me a little bit, because, I mean, you and I know that there is some pretty bad research out there on these subjects. Exactly. Where are they getting this research? What is the source?
Well, I will tell you that some of the source, they have 2 members who are board members, including the president of the Transgender Education Association. So one of these is transgender himself, presents as a woman, and has several kids, and is married to a woman, but is actually a man, but presents as a woman. So very outspoken. And then another is the parent of a transgender child or transgender identifying child. And then there's another young man who was appointed by my representative, the one who was sworn in on a pile of pornographic books. Yeah. So I'll let you infer what he worships.
Yeah.
But those 3 people out of 11, we know where they're going, and it pretty much is always in lockstep. So their goal is to facilitate and educate transition in school, about education in schools. But they're also relying, they didn't put the references in this year. Last year, they put the references in. And this gets to one of the most egregious things they did. They are drawing this stuff from places like Gender Spectrum, Trevor Project. And one of the things that Gender Spectrum says is that you should have combined research or combined classes for kids on sex ed, and the reason is to prepare them to negotiate for sexual negotiations later on. So
amongst themselves, you mean?
Yeah.
Negotiating sexual acts amongst themselves. So that's an organization called Gender Spectrum. They're giving advice to the Fairfax County School Board, and if people don't rise up and make a change there, their 4th graders, their 8-year-olds, are going to be hearing all of this very explicit education, so-called education, without your consent and outside of the confines of your faith and moral view. You expose children to this stuff, and it changes them, it warps them, and it's not age appropriate. And you're not allowed to have a say in any of it. And that's why we're really happy that at the very least, Laura Hanford is there to at least alert us to it. She can't change it, but she can at least let us know what's being done. Laura, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me on board again.
It's 6:45. Bye. WMAL traffic and weather every 10 minutes. First on the Vice. I wish I had better news for people who send their kids to Fairfax County Public Schools, but that's just, whenever Laura Hanford comes in and reports on what's going on there, it seems so hopeless.
It's hard not to feel.
That Carl Frisch is the person who's in charge of the school board.
Yeah.
But it's good that we're on top of it, and good that we learn about it and know what's going on. One quick note back to Biden real fast. The first big lie that they told us it actually happened during the debate, where Team Biden put out this note that he was suffering from a debilitating cold. Mm-hmm. Remember that? What's going on with his voice? Well, he's got a cold. He's got a cold. He's got a really bad cold. He's got a really bad cold. And it was repeated everywhere.
Yeah.
Everyone said he had a real bad
sore
cold.
Sore throat, yeah.
But then, of course, right after the debate, to show how healthy and wonderful he was, they took him to a Waffle House.
Right.
Where he was hugging
people.
and kissing people and getting food.
Spreading his germs all
exactly.
over. Mm-hmm.
So either he just doesn't care about the people at the Waffle House and he just uses them as props for a social media video, or they were lying again.
I think it's both, Larry.
Yeah.
I don't think he cares, and they are liars.
I will also make this point. Late night in the Atlanta area at a Waffle House around midnight.
He's lucky he made it out alive.
I mean, the cold is really the least of your concerns about what you're going to catch there.
Are they trying to kill him? Maybe.
It's 6:52.